Oh, reader, come closer. It is time for what could be the final vlog of 2025, or at least it's going to be the final vlog to see you within 2025. I might still cut up this vlog in two and have it run across 2 weeks, because in principle it started on Sunday. It is now Wednesday, but as I'm filming the opening clip now and I only have like a little bit to talk about when it comes to the days before, maybe we'll extend this and have this be like the end of the year vlog or something like that. But in any case, we started this vlog on Sunday because on Sunday I went to the Zoo of Antwerp and I went to Zoo Lights, which is an event that they do basically every year at this point in time. The Zoo of Antwerp is a sister zoo with the Zoo of Blankendaal, and so they kind of change years, which one does which year. And so this year it was in Antwerp. The Zoo of Antwerp I really like because it's like a city zoo. It has a beautiful background because it has the station of Antwerp in the background. It is quite small, but it definitely does, over the past few decades, has done a lot of work in order to make the sort of like, what do you call that? It's not exhibits, but like the places where the animals are kept up to par. Like I did a background tour there at one point in time, like a backstage tour, in which they were also talking about how there were certain parts of the zoo that they couldn't really tackle yet at that point in time because it would be too stressful to the animals for them to move. And they are currently working on a very big area, which is basically the most sort of like sad part of the zoo up until recently, because this was where the big cats were being kept, and these are like the very old cages. They do still have part of those old cages in part of the park, but they are sort of like kept just for birds at this point in time, and sort of like the borders between those cages have been broken down a lot of times to make much bigger cages as well. But so the area that had the big cats in it has been demolished at this point in time because the last of the big cats that were being kept in there has died, and so that is a new area for them to tackle and do something new with in the future. But yeah, I enjoyed having this time combined the two, because normally we just go to, like the last few times we've just went to Zoo Lights without going to the zoo itself, but today we, like on Sunday, but on Sunday we combined the two, so we went for a day trip to the zoo and then afterwards we went to Zoo Lights. The animals are very active today, which it was quite interesting to see, because we had like some fights between two elephants, some lions playing with one another, some zebra attacking one another. It seemed like there was quite a lot of activity going on in the zoo, and we also got to listen to one of the keepers talk about the gorillas. Oh yeah, we also had like, there's this massive voliere, so a massive like area with tons of birds in it, and then buffles as well in the on the ground level, and there were some birds, which I am not coming up with the English name, that were basically attacking one another, and then they flew over, and that kind of startled all of the birds. So all of the birds within that voliere were like flying at one point, which was pretty impressive to see the width of their wingspan for some of these specimens. But so yeah, I had a great time. I loved Zoo Lights. You know, I am happy that we combined it this time around, though we might not do it next time again, because there's just a little bit of a gap between the time in which the zoo closes and the time in which we had our slots. And if you do go for an earlier time slot, you just have too many people, so it's actually better to even go later than we went. We went for the 6 o'clock time slot, but I think halfway through we kind of caught up to the people from the earlier time slots. So yeah, it's better to go later. But then of course if you're going to the zoo first, then you've got all this time in between otherwise. But so yeah, I do enjoy it, and I enjoy doing the zoo as well, because normally when I do Zoo Lights I'm a little bit sad not to be seeing the animals, and so now we did see the animals during the day and then went back for Zoo Lights. So the last few days I've basically been gaming for the most part. So I've been playing Elden Ring again, trying to become Elden Lord finally. I'm like almost 200 hours into this game, and yeah, We are not there yet, guys. We're definitely not there yet. I'm definitely getting beaten up a lot still within this game, so not there yet. But so, today is the 24th of December. It is going to be Christmas Eve tonight. My friend is coming over. We are having cheese fondue at my place, so I just need to go and get some baguettes for that. I need cat food for my cat, who will be running out shortly. And then I need to go and grab the cheese fondue around 3:30. But so yeah, I do have some stuff here with me. First of all, I've got the wine gums. So this is the final day of my wine gum advent calendar. So today we have a full package. Otherwise it was just sort of like smaller plastic bags that had like a few of the wine gums in them. But so we've got the cherry coated with vanilla, which is actually one of the bags that I kind of kept with me because those were one of the flavors that I really enjoyed a lot. So very happy that it is that one. If it would have been, I'm sure that they probably never give licorice as a full package because that's just like too much of a you hate it or you love it type of deal, but I would not have been happy with a full package of the licorice ones because licorice is just not for me. So, but I also have the final little package from basically Brit's advent calendar that I also wanted to open up with you guys. So, it's something cloth-like. It's gonna be a small bag. Okay, I'm gonna show that to you guys. I already see it from the mirror behind you, and that's really quite cute. So it's got a fireplace, a dog sitting by the fire, nice cozy little blanket, and like, yeah, love a little cute little bag to store stuff in. We'll have to figure out what exactly I'm gonna be storing in this. What is like the ideal? Maybe I can just like have that be a place to collect some prompts for next year. Though I also have a prompt jar, I guess, that I've gotten in some sort of an Illumicrate box that I could use for that. So we'll have to figure out what exactly I'm going to be using it for. But very lovely. I've enjoyed this advent calendar a lot because I loved the items in it and the art style of Brit's illustrations. So yeah, very happy with that. There is still an envelope for the 25th. I'm assuming that it's gonna have some sort of a discount code or something like that. Maybe a Christmas card in it, but in any case, we are more or less done with the advent calendars. I'm behind on my white chocolate one, but that's just because it doesn't really spark joy, and so I am quite sick of the white chocolate in it, so I think I will just be finishing that one out throughout the weeks to come, I guess, whenever I feel like a little piece of chocolate. And then I do still have to finish my advent calendar book. I'm one day behind, so yesterday evening I didn't get around to reading the section for that day. But I think to some extent it's probably also best because I think we're already in the rounding off of the story type of part of the book. So it's gonna be best to read those 2 chapters together and, you know, finish out the story. But so yes, this one was A Heart for Christmas by Sophie Jomain, which is an advent calendar book. So basically you read a chapter a day. If you buy it first by hand, then it means that the pages will be kind of like stuck together so that you have to kind of like cut through them in order to open them up every single day. This is a French advent calendar book, which is about a girl who has had a heart transplant and she's returning to her father's place for the Christmas period. And she is leaving behind an overbearing mother who's far too worried about her, but her carefree father might be too much on the opposite side. However, she meets a guy over there who's kind of testing her boundaries and the extent of what she is willing to do or what she is afraid of doing. But so yeah, I enjoyed this one a lot, I will have to say. I definitely enjoyed this one a ton, and I'm very happy with this advent calendar book, and I love this experience of going through it slowly throughout the month. I will say a month is a long period of time, so I didn't necessarily always keep up with it. I kept up with it very well for a very long period of time, but then towards the second half of December it definitely started to slip a little bit, and I had to make up for a few days in one week in which I was just like not really feeling myself, feeling a little bit in a slump or a funk, and that week I definitely had to make up for quite a fair bit. So, but yeah, nothing remains for me to talk about at this point in time. I think the other book that I'm reading is The Loneliness of Sonia and Sunny, which I gotta say is too long. This is a 600-page book, which is Booker Prize shortlisted. This is an author, Kiran Desai, who has previously won the Booker Prize. I was quite excited for this book. I definitely thought that it looked quite interesting, and it was, but it's just too long. So it is about two Indian characters. One who, well, basically both of them have basically been raised with the idea of going to the US to study there and the hopes of them sticking in the US. And especially for one of them, that definitely means that he is very much sort of like raised US centric, cannot speak Hindi, for example, and has basically been raised with a little bit of a different mindset, to the extent that he kind of feels like he is displaced both in the US, being a non-American being of Indian descent, but also in India, where he feels like he also doesn't belong, and he also doesn't understand enough of the context, the history, the culture to fully fit in. And our other character, Sonia, is somebody who has also gone to the US to study, but her experience in the US is one of extreme loneliness and is one that doesn't go very successfully. However, she does meet somebody over there, somebody who she grows very close with. However, that relationship will kind of put a shadow over her for the remainder of the book. Now, I did enjoy this book. I am rooting for Sonia and Sunny to get their life together, to get their shit together, but it is too long of a book for my enjoyment of it. I'm not enjoying it enough to be worth 600 pages of reading time. And yeah, that is basically my conclusion, because I don't necessarily, I feel like this is one of those vibes book. You kind of vibe along with the characters, you kind of taken along with the book, but it's not necessarily one that I am engaged with in the sense of thinking about like, ooh, what is gonna come next? Ooh, where is this plotline going? Oh, can we introduce this or that? Oh, this cinematic is very interesting, for example. So I'm just kind of going along with the flow of this book, and for that type of a read, this is just too much of a page count. But so yeah, when I finish those, because that definitely needs to happen today as well, because I think I lose my hold on it tomorrow, meaning that I need to finish that today. I don't have too much to go. I think in full length at like 1 time speed it would be some 2 hours, but I'm listening at 1.6 speed. And then the Advent Calendar book, and that means I will be free to read the other books, because I definitely need to read The Everlasting by Alix Harrow before, or Alexis Henderson, I'm always confused by these two, before the 27th or 28th, because that is when the 60 days beyond its publication expire, and so for her kit I need to read it before then. And The Penguin Lessons by Tom Michell, because that movie is out in cinemas now and I want to go and watch it. But so yeah, that is what is coming up in future. For today and tomorrow there's not gonna be any much content. I won't be doing like B-roll footage, for example. I might have some, but not that much, because I just don't tend to want to combine the experience of Christmas with vlogging Christmas, just because it is my favorite day of the year, it is my favorite time of the year, so I want to be fully in the moment when it comes to these celebrations. But one thing I actually can include in this video, and I think I probably should indeed do it right now, is I have 2 packages that arrived on my doorstep, and since we are the 24th, I think it is about time to unbox them. Hello everybody, and I just see that I have the cat carrier in view. Let's just change that, right? So it is the evening of Christmas Day, so I've just returned from my family, so I had just a lovely day with all the Christmas traditions and stuff like that, and so just got home, wanted to talk through the books that I got, and yeah, open a few packages as well. But so I received the second book in the God King Chronicles by Mike Brooks. So the first book in this series is, good question, The Black Coast, which I read 2 years ago, I think, which I really enjoyed, because this is like a series of like 2 differing cultures clashing, and rather than it necessarily being all about like the clash, it is about trying to find compromise. So something that I don't feel we see that often in fantasy books, in which there's really like a look for a diplomatic solution, a way to merge these two societies rather than one society trying to fully like dominate the other and wipe out the other culture. Then my sister went for the risky solution of giving me a gift, a book that I hadn't put on my wish list, so that she wouldn't be able to know for sure whether I had read or not, and that is a Christmas book by Miranda Hart. So it's The Christmas Tree That Loved to Dance, so a little bit of a Christmas story by Miranda Hart, and so yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I might actually already start reading that tonight. It's not that long, so maybe I can even finish it tonight, but yes. It has lovely illustrations as well, so I'm very much looking forward to that. And then the big brick that I got is Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson. So the 5th book in the Stormlight Archive series, which I wanted to get last year for Christmas, but I found it very difficult to find this particular edition within Belgium, because most of the editions that I found were always the UK edition, and I really wanted to make sure that I had the edition to match my 4 others. This is a brick of a book. It would very much be noticeable if it was a different edition. So I now have the matching edition. So since that other gift decided to fall down, we shall start with this little package that arrived. So 2 packages I found their way to me. For one of them, I know who it's coming from. The other one is a little bit of a surprise. So let us see. Can I first get the note? The problem is with first getting the note is like, that's the receipt, I think. So let me just get the note, the book I mean. Okay, so this is The Healing Hippo of Hinode Park by Michiko Aoyama. This is a book by the author of What You're Looking For Is in the Library, which is a book that I really enjoyed. This cover, of course, totally appeals to me, but also like I have been having a little bit more difficulty with Japanese healing fiction, but What You're Looking For Is in the Library is one of the more recent successes, and so I'm hoping that that just means that this author still knows how to do it for me, and so hopefully I will have a good experience with this one as well. And let me see if I now can locate the gift card. Yes. So it's from Daniela. Thank you, Daniela. Merry Christmas. Hope you're having a wonderful holiday break and that you enjoy this one. I will, definitely. Thank you so much. I'll just put the note in here so I don't forget. Alright, and then the other gift has also reached me, and so now I know who this is from. Just to be sure, a receipt. So it says, "Hey Cleo, I've heard a lot of good things about this book. Let me know whether I should read it. Merry Christmas from Kitty." So Daniela and Kitty's channels will be linked in the description box below. Definitely go and check out their channels as well. They have, like, if you like my content, I'm pretty sure you like their content as well. And let me see. Oh, there are 2 books in here. Not good for my TBR. And so I have 2 cards as well. So, the first one, well, the good thing, the question I now have is for which note is, okay, it says it, okay. So the book that she wanted to know whether she needed to read it is The Names by Florence Knapp. This was also featured on the Goodreads Choice Award debut list, I think, maybe also in the fiction one. And I have to admit that I no longer fully know. I do think that this is like a story about the different choices and the way that your life changes based on choices, and that it's like looking at a splintering point, and that we see like the 2 potential ways that the future could have gone from there. So let me see if I can see that here. So it is 1987, and it's a year before I'm born. And in the aftermath of a great storm, Cora sets out with her 9-year-old daughter to register the birth of her son. Her husband intends for her to follow a long-standing family tradition and call the baby after him. But when faced with the decision, Cora hesitates. Going against his wishes is a risk that will have consequences, but is it right for her child to inherit his name from generations of domineering men? The choice she makes in this moment will shape the course of their lives. 7 years later, her son is Bear, a name chosen by his sister, and one that will prove as cataclysmic as the storm from which it emerged. Or he's Julian, the name his mother set her heart on, believing it would enable him to become his own person. Or he is Gordon, named after his father and raised in his cruel image. But is there still a chance to break the mold? So yeah, I think this is going to be looking at 3 different versions of this child's life based on the name that he's given at birth. And then the second book is a book by T. Kingfisher, Snake Eater. So yeah, this is Snake Eater by T. Kingfisher. I've read a few T. Kingfishers and I always really have a good time with them. This is one on the sort of like horror side of the scale of things that she writes. Not all of them are that. I feel like a lot of her books are somewhat horror oriented, but I've definitely also now been reading the Paladin's Grey series, and that one I feel has like no horror sense to it. But yeah, I always really enjoy my time with T. Kingfisher's works, and so I'm looking forward to diving into this one soon. But so yeah, we have added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books into the TBR at this point in time, meaning the TBR now stands at 16 books. And I'm going to be adding to that on the 29th when I go to London for a day. I don't think that I will be coming back from London without having purchased a single book. So let's see if we can keep this one under 20 by the end of the year, okay? It is the 28th. I am going for a day to London tomorrow, so I'll include those clips within this video. But yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about my reading. I don't know why my hair chose to do this very interesting style today. I actually think I really should just like have the lower half of my hair like cut off, because I don't necessarily mind the front half, but like the lower half is just making like a very weird shape the way that it's looking now, and I'm like, what is going on? Like from the side it's somewhat fine, but from the front I'm just like, what the fuck? But so yes, I have been reading in a few things, and I probably will forget half of what I've been reading recently to talk about throughout this vlog, but I want to be reading, but what I want to be talking about in this update is The Everlasting by Alix E. Harrow. This is a book that I started some 3 days ago. It is supposed to be my October release for the Hurt Yet Prompt, but I am not making it. Like, I should have finished that 2 days ago. I found a little bit of a loophole in the sense that like the website of my bookshop mentions that it's published on the 30th of October, in which case it gave me 2 extra days, but then I need to finish today, and I've just made it halfway through. Now, that sounds very negative, but it isn't necessarily. It's just that this somehow is so slow for me to read. Like, I am reading it at like a font in which it's like as if it's 500 pages long in my ebook, but it's actually only 311 pages long. And so when I've gone through a whole section on this book and then I check how many pages I've read, it turns out that I've like read like less than 20, and I'm like, what? I mean, I feel like I've made such progress within this book, and that might just be because I'm mentally seeing the much bigger page count that is on my e-reader, but still it is just a little bit disheartening. And I will also admit that it isn't like, I do feel that it is a struggle to some extent. Like, it's not a page turner. It didn't grab me the way that I hoped it was initially going to grab me, especially since this is like a Groundhog's Day type of book. So this is a book in which we are following 2 main characters. We are following a legend who is a female knight who is basically foundational to this nation, and then we're following a scholar who has been studying this knight all of his life and who now has the opportunity to meet her. Now, I won't really talk about how the sort of like Groundhog's Day element comes into play, but basically I've gone ahead and looked ahead, I think there are 5 iterations. And so the first iteration, we see a full story from one of these 2 perspectives. Then we get more or less that exact same iteration from the other perspective. And we'll see what happens from there, because that is basically where I am. But that definitely means that we are seeing the same thing over and over again. And this is a plot line that I really love. So this doesn't have to be a struggle or like something that automatically breaks down your pacing, but here I definitely did feel it. And part of that can have to do with the fact that there's a lot of like pining, romantic pining within these first 2 iterations, and that is just something that I don't really care about all that much. And so that also of course made the story drag a lot, because a lot of the actual storyline has to do with like mutual longing, and hopefully we can kind of get past it at some point, because I do think I find the rest of it interesting. Cannot go into too much with that because that would be spoilers, but I do find the Groundhog's Day element of it interesting, and the way that that is built into this world and into this plot line. I do think that that is an interesting thing to look at and to see where we're gonna go with that. But yeah, the meat of the story, like the biggest page count of the story is not really dedicated to that yet. It is dedicated to the story of these 2 characters, and that is just too slow burn pining for me. But luckily I can also like switch it out with The Penguin Lessons by Tom Michell, which is a book that has a movie adaptation that is out in cinemas right now, and I would love to go and see it, which is why I finally prioritized it, because this has been on my want to read list for a while. And this is the story of a professor who basically, he is like a young Englishman who has taken the opportunity to go and become a teacher in Argentina during the time of like the Peron dictatorship. And he is basically over there on a holiday in Uruguay when he stumbles upon a beach with a lot of stranded penguins who have all been covered in some sort of waste from an oil disaster. And he stumbles upon one that is still alive, takes it back to his apartment, cleans it up, and then kind of feels responsible for the penguin, because he feels like the penguin will no longer be able to survive in the wild because he has basically like cleaned off its protective layer. And so he takes it back to Argentina with him. I'm really enjoying The Penguin Lessons. It's like not big literature or anything like that, but it's very heartwarming, cute, charming, funny, and so I'm very much enjoying that. It's a short read, and so that is definitely what this type of book needs to be. You know, it doesn't need to be very long, because it's not like it's gonna, I mean, who knows, it might still, but it's not like it's gonna impart the biggest wisdoms of all times and stuff like that. It's just like something short, sweet, cozy, heartwarming, to brighten up these dark days. So yes, I'm enjoying that one a whole ton. But so yeah, I am just going to be reading a bit more today, trying to get a little bit further in the everlasting, get over the fact that I have not managed to read an October release in time for the Herkiet prompt, and then, you know, like life moves on, and tomorrow we go to London. Full day of London. I'm very much looking forward to it. Damn it. Well, that'll kind of just have to do, because I don't feel like rearranging this view. This is the difficulty between going between sprints and like filming, because then this tripod kind of like changes heights a lot of the time, and so it's now at the top range of this height. I would have to rearrange things. I will do so eventually, I guess, because I don't really have plans for sprints in the immediate future. But I am here coming at you from the 17th of December. Because basically, yeah, I have not been the content queen throughout the end of December, beginning of January. Now this is a pattern, we have seen this repeated, and so what I'm mainly trying to do here is break what happened last year, which is last year I had my Every Book All at Once end in at the end of December. I made maybe a few videos in January, but I basically fell off of the face of the earth for a few months and fell off of content creation. So we're not gonna do that, but I am here to round off this vlog. Because last time we spoke, I was about to go into a day in London, and last time we spoke I had very different opinions about two books that I'm gonna talk about at this point in time, and this is bothering me, so I'm gonna change the angle. Better. I don't like for my head to be at the top of the frame. But so yeah. So last time we spoke, I was just about to go to London, and my opinions about two of the books that I read in December was about to drastically change. So I read The Penguin Lessons and The Afterlasting while I was in London, or for the most part while I was in London. I think you're perfect now. And I kind of changed my mind about them. So The Penguin Lessons, I didn't necessarily change my mind too much about it, but I definitely had higher expectations for it. So I was thinking that this was going to be a book that swept me off my feet, going to be a 5-star reader and anything like that. And it was just a middle of the road AK read. I think this is wholesome, heartwarming type of story, but it is also a story that doesn't really serve a purpose and doesn't really have a sort of like well-rounded ending to it. It kind of just stops, and then it's like, well, okay, yeah, that's something that I read. And so as a reader, for me, it didn't really feel fulfilling to finish this book, because it was just a book that chronicled an interesting relationship between man and human, man and animal, and that just like, it didn't really necessarily managed to wrap that up in a lot of lessons and things like that. And not that I say that this would need to be the case, but because this book just felt like things were happening and then they were not because the book was over, it also wasn't fulfilling. So I do definitely feel like I needed this to be structured in a better way, or framed in a certain way that just like felt that just landed better for a reader, rather than just like chronicling events and then coming to an end. But with The Everlasting, I completely kind of changed my mind, because The Penguin Lessons was my audiobook when I was in London, so most of my progress was made in that book. But whenever I was able to sit down in order to have lunch and stuff like that, I was reading The Everlasting. So also on the train there, on the train back, as I said, I was going for one day, so I had two 2-hour train rides, and then I actually also had a train ride from Brussels to Leuven and back. Other way around. So I did have like 3 hours no, 5 hours in total on the train that day. So I had quite a lot of time to do physical reading as well, and I read The Everlasting in that time, and I loved it. So in the end, I was very bummed out for missing the Herkia time frame, like by just about. But I'm more happy with the fact that I just really got to enjoy this story, and that I didn't necessarily push myself through those first two sections neither, because I did definitely struggle with those first two sections for the reasons that I have explained before. But once that time loop element started to play a bigger role and start to come more into play, that definitely kind of changed my experience with the book. And I don't mean to say that for me the first two sections were unnecessary. I do think that they're necessary to build up a image and a base for which to build the time loop around, build our understanding of what is going on. But so I'm not saying that I started having way more fun starting with the third iteration, so the first two sections were meaningless. No, I just had a less good of a time with the first two sections because of personal problems with sort of romantic pining and that type of deal. But I'm very happy that I did stick with it, because the remaining part of the book was amazing. I absolutely enjoyed it. I loved what was done with the time loop. I loved the discussions about history, about storytelling, about the way in which history is written and how that can impact a nation and the identity and culture of a nation. And so all those things I absolutely enjoyed. This is like one of those books that I feel like it is a 5-star, except for the fact that I really struggled with the beginning of it. So it is the final experience that leaves me feeling like it's a 5-star. Ultimately, I think I gave it like 4, 4.5, something like that, because I did struggle with that beginning. So it is not a perfect book, but it definitely feels like one of those books that will stick with me for a long time. One of those books that I absolutely had an amazing time with, mentally, enjoyment wise towards the end, and also in terms of analyzing and thinking about how this book impacts like general state of humankind and also our times. So yeah, a great read. We'll definitely keep an eye out for more Alix Harrow, because I didn't necessarily love her other book that I read, which is the Starlight House. It just stole, so I no longer actually have it over here. I thought that was okay, but I didn't necessarily fully love it. But this one I did, and so hopefully the next books she writes will also work out for me. But so I did a 180 on those two books, because in my previous clip I had the opposite experience with these two. And I did also want to kind of circle back to the beginning of this vlog, in which I talked about 2 books that I was close to finishing at that point in time. So the first one was the Advent Calendar book A Heart for Christmas by Sophie Jomain. So I ended up finishing that one. I did really have a good time with that. I thought that that was everything I wanted an Advent Calendar book to be like. Like, of course, I could always ask for more, but I definitely think that, you know, the experience I was looking for in going through a story chapter by chapter throughout the month of December was fulfilled with this book. I had a fun time with these chapters, but also not such a fun time that I found it difficult to stick to the 1 chapter a day structure, rather than, you know, like circling like reading ahead or anything like that. I did love that this one had disability representation within it, because our main character in this book had a heart transplant, and yeah, I had a good time with it. I've been seeing a lot of negative responses to this book, saying that it's like poorly written or whatever, and I wouldn't say anything spectacular about the writing style, but the writing style also is something that I did not notice at any point throughout this book. It is a YA Christmas story, so it is potentially written, like, it is definitely not written in a difficult style. It's written in a very accessible prose, but I also didn't feel like, I didn't find myself noticing the writing style in a negative way neither. But so yeah, I had fun times with that. And then the other thing that I mentioned in this vlog that I have finished, yeah, that was the other thing that I finished was The Loneliness of Sonia and Sunny, but I don't really feel like I have anything more to say about that book. That book was too long. Unfortunately, it lost my interest. I did think that there were strong foundational pieces to this story that did appeal to me, but ultimately it was just too drawn out to keep my attention on it. But so yeah, there have been books that I read in the meantime, but probably not before the end of the year. I do think that I finished this one still in 2025, and that is The Christmas Tree That Loved to Dance, which I also showed within this vlog, which is just like a wholesome little Christmas story about a woman who is able to read the minds of dogs, but also she can hear a Christmas tree speak. So when she's out and about a few days after Christmas and sees like the discarded Christmas trees over on the sidewalk, one of them speaks to her and she tries to rescue as many Christmas trees as possible. So it's a children's story more or less, and so it's just like, you know, a little light, cozy story for the Christmas period. So very quick to go through, lovely illustrations, but also, you know, like, it's not going to be your new favorite book of the year probably, but it is definitely a nice one to reach for in the Christmas periods. And then let's talk about London, because I did the thing that I always do when I go to London by myself, and that is do too much. So I went to London. I started my day off with a walk along the canal that starts at King's Cross, and so I walked along that canal past Camden Lock until I got to Regent's Park, where I then walked up to Primrose Hill in order to have the view of London. I have never done this part, like I've never gone up to Primrose Hill, even though I go to London very frequently, and it was definitely a nice view, and Primrose Hill definitely was way steeper than I actually imagined it to be. But so looking at it, it was like, oh, okay, am I supposed to have an amazing view from London from over there? But while walking up it was definitely like, okay, it is definitely pretty steep, so I can kind of imagine that I'm gonna have a better view up there than I had down there. But so yes, I had that view, and then of course, at that point in time, I was like, okay, I want to go for lunch at sort of like the South Bank. The South Bank is sort of my favorite section of London, but it would make sense for me to stop by the Dawn Books along the way, because that is like closer to where I was at that point in time. Rather than take public transport, I of course walked to Dawn Books, and then I had a little bit of a scroll around there, and there I bought my first book to add to my TBR, which is hiding behind here, I think. And that is The Architect's Apprentice by Elif Shafak. So Elif Shafak is probably my favorite author, I guess, at this point in time. And she's a Turkish author who has many books out at this point in time. Her most recent one is There Are Rivers in the Sky, which is an absolutely amazing read if you haven't already read this. This is one of her earlier works, I think, and it is about a boy who is delivering a white elephant to the Sultan in Istanbul. It's basically supposed to be like a journey with this elephant and a lot of adventures along the way. However, that doesn't really sound like the type of story that Elif Shafak tells, so it's definitely going to be in a different style than sort of like the adventure type style that this premise can potentially like make some people think that the story is going to be like. But yes, very much looking forward to picking this one up. So I left Dawn Books. At that point in time, was already quite hungry, but mainly I needed to go to the toilet. So I tried to find a coffee bar where I could go to the toilet, but the first coffee bar I entered into didn't have a toilet. Second one I went into, I thought it would have a toilet because it had it downstairs, and it didn't. So yeah, I still wasn't able to go to the toilet then. I did finally listen to reason, and rather than walk all the way to the South Bank, I did take the metro to get off at Westminster, have a little bit of a look at Big Ben, and then cross the street in order to go to the South Bank. And yeah, a lot of people in that section of London. It was very crowded over there. I got off in Westminster and I was like, oh, this was a mistake. But okay, I walked along the South Bank. I must say that by this point, my feet were already really hurting me. I had decided to put on my walking shoes, and I have done quite a lot of walking in them since then. I definitely don't think that the problem is the shoes. The problem will have been the fact that I did 30k steps in a day, but I had massive blisters on both feet. By that point, my hip was starting to hurt because I was kind of like walking in a different way to compensate. And my initial sort of like idea about going a day to London had been like, I'm gonna do like the Christmas markets, bookshops, and that's gonna be it. But in the end, I didn't do Christmas markets. I walked through the South Bank Christmas market, but I was just like, I'm in pain. There's too many people here. I just want to get to the restaurant that I wanted to go to. So I walked further along the South Bank, went to the toilet in the Tate Modern. Thank God for free museums in London. And then I made it to the restaurant where I had fish and chips. I've been to this place with my sister a few years ago, and I knew that they had amazing fish and chips. So I went there again to be able to have their fish and chips, to be able to sit down for a long period of time. And I gotta say, at no point in time did I feel like discomfort over taking up a chair and a table by myself, even though it did get a lot crowdier, a lot more crowded as I sat there for a while. I was a little bit after the usual lunch rush. I was there around 1, I guess. But like when I sat down, there were many tables still available. By the time I left, this was less the case, but at no point did I feel like people were kind of like eyeing me like, can she just leave or anything like that. And none of the staff really like came towards me to ask me if I wanted anything else or anything like that. So I definitely felt at ease, at comfort, which tends to be a problem that I have when solo traveling. So it's either an improvement on my mental state, or they just really made me feel very much welcome there. But I was also reading The Everlasting during lunch. Maybe I was just too engrossed in my book to be able to be annoyed, or like to feel anxious about the situation, more better said. Then I took off from there by metro, luckily, to the Waterstones at Piccadilly, because at that point in time I was like, I cannot move anymore. And I was like, I'm going to go to the Waterstones. This is going to be like my final movement. I can spend some hours there, but honestly, my feet were just too shot at that point in time, and my energy level was also too low to really be able to do the like slow browsing and getting through everything and seeing everything that they have on offer. So I feel like probably if an outsider would have been able to see me, they would have just seen me sat there looking like like a zombie sitting down in like a stool in the Waterstones and just like staring at nothing, probably staring into space for like, I don't know, who knows, 40 minutes? I don't know. But I basically looked around a little bit, sat down in the fantasy section and just let my feet rest over there. But I did buy 3 books in the Waterstones. First thing I bought was Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. This is a very short story. I've also already read it, but more about that in January, which is a book about Ireland in the 1980s and some shenanigans that the Catholic Church was getting up to there, some crimes that the Catholic Church was getting up to there that has to do with like their treatment of young women who were having children out of wedlock. So harrowing read, but I will say, I won't say too much about it. Well, let's pretend like this is a vlog in a moment in which I hadn't read it yet. Then I also bought, well, let me get the easier one out. I bought Paladin's Strength by T. Fisher. This is a sequel to Paladin's Grace. I read Paladin's Grace in October, I want to say, or September, and so this is the second book in the series, so that I can continue on. This is a series in which we're following a paladin who has lost his god. His god has died, and in the moment in which his god died, he and his fellow paladins basically kind of went berserk, and they are now trying to do penance in service to another god. When in book 1, he meets a certain lady and kind of gets involved in trying to save her from disaster as she gets involved in a certain plot scheme. Let's not talk too much about that. And then I also got a brick. This was one that I debated most about, firstly because I would have to carry it home with me, but I did have a backpack with me because I knew like that would be the least painful way to transport books back home, and but also because it was going to add a page count to my TBR cards, and I was already hoping to go into 2026 with a lower amount of books on the TBR card. I'd already settled for just having it be under 20, and then I was like, I would love for it to be slider books and then the ones that are this one, but okay. I also really did want this one. It was half price. It also was like super big deal. So that would be The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson. So do I remember what this is about? Because I had like a wrong idea in my mind. I think this is like a competition to become the next ruler or something like that. And there are like all these different houses or whatever that are going to take part. But then there's also a secret one that gets added into the mix. I don't know. I've heard that it's really good. I'm gonna come after Charlotte if this book is not good, because the main reason why I bought this one is because she really wanted me to read it, because she absolutely loves it. And also I've heard a lot of people over the past year talk about this book. I think it came out around February, March or something like that. And this is definitely one that I've seen a lot of people say that was one that they were pleasantly surprised with. So it definitely has been, it's not one of those books that, like the hype is so big for that, when it comes out everybody's reading it and you're hearing all of these differing opinions at the same time, or you're hearing everybody rave about it. It's just one that kind of has slowly spread throughout the community and that people have been picking up at different points throughout the year. So I've been hearing about it at regular intervals as well. And so I wasn't necessarily certain that it was going to be for me. It was definitely not one that I was necessarily going to prioritize the way that I've done now. But in the end, I decided to pick it up, and so now it is somewhat of a priority. But so yeah, that was the end of my day in London, more or less, because after that I just went to King's Cross in order to buy some stuff there in the supermarket, in order to then just spend some time in like the Starbucks before going on the Eurostar, because I was like, I cannot put another foot in front of the other one. I just need to go to the station already, so that at least I know that I've made it there, and then we can see. But in reality that turned out into like, yeah, no, my feet are shut. And so getting back from the station here to my apartment was like the slowest walk I've ever done. You know, it took me twice as long as it took me in the morning to get to do the same distance, but I had a great time, and yeah, I loved being back in London. I haven't booked my next trip, but I'm waiting for confirmation from my friends about which trains we're gonna take, and then I can book my next trip as well. But so yeah, that is basically gonna be it for this vlog. We went out of 2025 with friends, having a good time, and yeah, I will see you guys in another vlog when I actually start the new year with you guys. So we'll travel back in time another time, because I do have 2 vlogs that I've actually started prior to filming this clip. But yeah, I kind of knew, and I had been procrastinating on this vlog because I kind of knew that I had left it off abruptly without actually closing out the vlog, which is a tendency that I tend to have, which needs to be solved in 2026. But so, Happy New Year everyone, and I hope to see you guys in a future video. Bye!